UFC 305. Just done watching the card about 10 minutes ago. This video basically just talking about the main and what an explosive main event it was. DDP versus Adesanya. Some things we expected to happen during the fight, didn't expect to happen. But yeah, it was fight, man. I mean, when we look at it round by round, first round, I was surprised Izzy wasn't the one who started engaging gigs and because and we know obviously that um Izzy's pretty much built his game around those leg kicks, investing in them early and then going to the body and the head later on. But it was actually Dricus who invested in them early this time, throwing some nice leg kicks on the outside and the inside of Izzy's leg. We talked about it in the analysis video, the breakdown video, the prediction video. DDP and his blitzes, they're super effective. We saw it against Strickland, him pushing Strickland back. It was a big part of him actually winning the fight, and it was a big part of him winning this fight against Adesanya as well. Adesanya wasn't evasive enough, and he also wasn't crafty enough to actually counter DDP when he did come in with those blitzes. And what made the blitzes even more dangerous was the fact that he was comfortable blitzing in both stances, both orthodox and southpaw. But in the first round, I would say Izzy probably landed the more damaging shots. He did cut DDP open super early in that first round, but I'd say DDP was probably the more active. When he blitzed in, he was throwing punches and bunches. He was throwing combinations, and it seemed like every time he did blitz in, at least one of those shots would land. So yeah, I gave DDP that first round. The second round was very different. It was towards the start of the round, DDP timed a beautiful double leg on Izzy on the way in. It looked like he overextended and he just timed the double leg to perfection. And he did manage to actually flatten Izzy out. He had the wrist control, but he just couldn't keep him on the ground. And Izzy managed to make his way up back to the feet. Dricus didn't make much of that position that he had him in, but when they did stand back up and Dricus had his back standing, still had that body lock locked in, and he was throwing some nice shots to their head while obviously Izzy was facing the cage. They didn't land that much damage that round, but with the takedown, with the control that DDP had, I had him 2-0 going into that third round. During this fight, he was super responsible defensively. I think the high guard was super effective. We saw it in the Robert Whittaker fight. Whittaker didn't really know what to do when Dricus came in with that high guard. And even with this fight, Izzy was a bit he stumbled a little bit when it came to dealing with that high guard, but he worked out and he started throwing some nice shots to the body, started throwing some nice combinations to the body. While Dricus had that high guard in place, he would kind of pivot downwards, so when Izzy did try to throw those shots to the body, he would just land on the elbow. He would throw shots at these strange angles, and he would throw combinations. DDP is just a awkward guy to fight, and it's something that Strickland struggled with in their fight as well. These throwing shots from awkward angles. It was strange, and it looked like Izzy was having a tough time dealing with it as well. Every time he came in for the blitz, you don't know what he was gonna throw. Whether it was a head kick, a leg kick, overhand left or overhand right from whatever stance. So Izzy's defense was pretty much just to get away with him. But we did see, I believe it was from that second round onwards, Izzy started investing in that body. He was throwing nice combinations to the body. He was throwing nice body kicks. And what we saw in that third round, or even the end of the second round, was Dricus. Every single fight looks like he runs a 10K before walking out for the fight. He looked absolutely exhausted. I remember the commentators talking about it in the Darren Till fight a few years back. That's just how he breathes, with his mouth open. Apparently there's something wrong with his nose. I don't know if it's a deviated septum or whatnot, but he just looked exhausted. Even during this fight, he genuinely looked exhausted. I mean, that third round for both guys, it looked like the game plan kind of just went out of the window. They were just playing rock'em sock'em robots, trying to take each other's heads off. And it wasn't the most technical round ever, but I think the fans enjoyed it. Them just trying to take each other's heads off. Anyway, like I said, the blitzes for DDP was super effective for him this fight. He always seemed to land at least one of the shots he threw during those combinations. And yeah, that third round I gave it to Izzy because he started to piece him up. It looked like he was starting to hurt DDP with a couple of shots in those rounds. He mixed it up with rips to the body, some lovely combinations, started throwing some nice head kicks. And in that third round, it looked like it was personal between the two. It just, like I said, game plan went out of the window. And what surprised me was Izzy looked surprisingly sharp during that fight. After, a decent sized layoff, DDP being the more active one. At times it looked like Izzy was the one who was more fresh, more calculated. He even said after the fight, in his post-fight interview, this is the best he's felt, the strongest he's felt. And all the rumors about him potentially retiring was absolute nonsense, because it looks like he's not going anywhere. But yeah, that fourth round, Dricus reverted back to what he was doing in that first round, and it was going back to those blitzes that were so successful. And it came up trumps because he landed 2 big shots off a blitz. The latter one, which caught Izzy on the temple, and I thought he was rocked from that shot, but he looked alright. But it turns out he wasn't. He just, he put his poker face on, because Dricus managed to catch him with a couple more shots. And we saw Izzy point to the ground, saying, "Yeah, just stand here, stand and bang." And then as soon as Dricus came in, Adesanya just turned around. He started running away. Absolutely stinker. Where he just turned his back. He gave up his back. And he pretty much ran into the fence. And once he did that, Dricus landed a couple more shots to the head. He took Izzy down, and from there it was pretty easy for him to get the RNC, the rear naked choke. And with that, Dricus Du Plessis is the first man ever to submit Israel Adesanya, and he's now the king of Africa, and will main event the first ever card in Africa in UFC history. Yeah, as a main event, it was a good fight. I think it lived up to the hype. Both guys look really good. I definitely want to see Adesanya again. But, I mean, look, when you fought, I think Cormier said it, he's been involved in, double digits for the number of title fights that he's been in now. Has he even got that hunger to make his way back up the ladder? I don't know. And who's he fight? Imavov, Cannonier again. He's not gonna fight Vettori for a third time. Obviously, Strickland looks like he's gonna fight Du Plessis. So I don't know. Maybe Adesanya goes and tries it again at light heavyweight. I guess we'll find out. But for DDP, the path looks much clearer. Obviously, he's reserved his spot now. On that South Africa card, and obviously we all thought it was gonna be Strickland that he would be fighting on that card, but Alex Pereira, he's made a surprise appearance, and he's thrown his name in the hat for that fight, talking about coming back down to 84 kilograms, 185 pounds. Maybe that's the fight that the UFC will make, because obviously we know Dana White's looking to make the South Africa card next year. And we'd all expect Pereira to dust Khalil Roundtree in probably around 2 rounds, not take that much damage. So if that does happen, you've got both Strickland and Pereira who are available for that South Africa card to potentially face DDP. So what do you do? I mean, if you're looking at the pros and cons, obviously you just promise Strickland a title shot, and then you end up not giving it to him. That doesn't look so great on the company. But at the same time, if you feed DDP to Pereira and Pereira beats DDP, then you get Poatan versus Adesanya again. And those two, I feel like no one minds watching those guys fight. 10, 20, 30, 40, 40. They're just linked together, and we can watch them fight week after week after week, and it's a big fight. The Pereira fight is probably the bigger fight, but I think the Strickland fight is the fight that probably makes more sense. So, I mean, yeah, that was pretty much all for the main event. And yeah, I think that's that. Looking forward to seeing DDP in South Africa.